One thing I always tell people, because I think maternity is the big thing which people always say, right? That
आपने कैसे हैंडल किया?
I never thought my job is an option. But just because I'm having a baby doesn't mean that my job became option. I need to do it. Now, how do I make it happen that I have a baby?
Hi guys, welcome to another episode of our podcast Talent First. Today I have with me someone who's heading analytics at a company that we are all customers of, that is Swiggy. So hi Ishu, hi, how are you?
Very good. How are you?
क्या चल रहा है?
Chill chal raha hai.
Chill चल रहा है. Perfect. So first question is कि you use Swiggy or you use Zomato
Always Swiggy.
or Zepto?
Sometimes.
Sometimes Zepto. Perfect. So Ishu, tell us, like, start with an elevator pitch. Who is Ishu Jain? And talk to us, like, in a minute if you had to explain your journey.
So Ishu Jain is a small town girl.
From Meerut.
Had high ambitions to be always independent. Grew in a very traditional setup.
What do you define as traditional?
So I grew up in a family which was very grounded on religion, culture. Girls have to do a certain thing, certain way. They had a certain outlook, etc. My parents, or let's say my mom, was that way very different in the sense she said, okay, my girls have to be independent. She did everything, but then in the boundary. Right. So, but I just jumped onto that bandwagon. I was like, yeah, I have to be independent, whatever it takes. So even today, if you ask me what's my favorite subject, I don't know. For me, it was like, just be the best at what you are doing, right? And how can you reach that goal of being independent? Basically, having a control on your own life is really important to me. That's how I continued my educational journey.
So Meerut to Delhi.
Meerut to Lucknow. So I did my 11th, 12th in Lucknow.
Oh, where?
Jaipuria school.
Yeah, very famous, right? Jaipuria school.
So because I wanted to do commerce, and in Meerut there were no commerce schools which were good for girls to go.
Can you define what does that mean?
Because you will have this.
You wanted to go to a co-ed school, or like not to a co-ed school?
No, co-ed is fine, but it still should have high level of English and certain culture or discipline, etc. Those days, it was not there.
Yeah.
So I went to Lucknow to study. I had my grandparents there, so lived with them. Did my commerce with maths there, and
कितने आए थे आपके 12th में? आप SRCC में गए थे, I'm assuming अच्छे आए होंगे.
so 92%.
वो तो बहुत अच्छे थे उस टाइम.
That's the only reason I went to Delhi.
हाँ.
So the funny anecdote here is that I was all set to do CA. My dad is a CA.
Oh, okay.
So my foundation course has arrived. I've
Sorted
started all that. Then my 12th marks come as 92%. And then everybody around me and my dad were like, now she's got 92%.
Yeah.
She cannot study in Arya Kanya Inter College, which was the...
Arya Samaj, those are the ones, right? Those are like...
No, so there is Meerut College, which is known for gundas and stuff, right? So girls really don't do regular college. Otherwise, there is Smile Degree College or Arya Kanya Raghuveer Inter College.
Perfect.
And they were like, she can't go there.
Right.
So let's go to Delhi. And then we went to Delhi. We applied, of course, the commerce colleges. And there I did not get commerce, by the way. So SRCC, I lose by 0.5.
For commerce?
For commerce.
Econ में हो गया आपका?
Econ में हो गया. Then...
Stephens try नहीं किया econ के लिए आपने?
नहीं, because econ करनी नहीं थी ना.
अच्छा. Got it.
And my dad has this attitude that if we're going, we'll go only for the best.
Yeah. There's still a debate which is better, but yeah, fair enough.
Some nonsense, okay, like that, I would say, because it's like, so I applied only in 2 colleges, which is SRCC and LSR, came back.
LSR में तो हो ही गया होगा आपका?
LSR में हो गया था, but then I was tired of studying in these girls' college schools and all. I said, okay, and my dad was like, okay, again the traditional thinking, right?
Right.
That LSR में the girls become over smart, slightly tez and liberal, and he didn't want me to study there.
Yeah, it has like a very JNU kind of branding. Yes. For some reason.
He didn't want me to go there.
Yeah.
So he actually preferred that I should go to SRC, even though it is econ.
Yeah.
And then once I went into econ, then the whole economics, stats, and the data science and.
वो data science कहाँ होगा तब?
So all the stats part, right, etc. came into the picture. ML nahi tha, right? So machine learning wasn't there, but
Obviously.
then all the probability theory and game theory and everything was there, and it all started from there. And then of course we got to know about Delhi School of Economics.
वहाँ पे भी हो गया आपका.
Prepped for it, got through. There also, I only applied in
Delhi School
of Economics and JNU because my dad was like, अभी कौन जाएगा पुणे?
मतलब हमेशा आप एक right wing, left wing मुझे लग रहा है कि you take two options and but always go for the right.
Yeah, it's always going to happen
Yes,
like that.
yes.
But I would say I was really lucky to be in D school.
And then how did your campus placement? Campus placement की through job मिली आपको?
हाँ.
जी Genpact में.
Genpact.
तब वो G से Genpact बन गया था या G था?
Just
बना था.
6-8 months into
Right. Now Genpact and Dell, two companies early parts of your career where you stayed. Again, some of the biggest leaders who are right now in the industry, have built the industry, come from these companies.
Yes.
I'm also taking you as part of that list. So can you talk to me about some leaders in either Genpact or Dell that were there with you at that time that have impacted you in some form or the other?
Yes. So in Genpact, my AVP, or I was part of this team, the AVP was Radhika. I think I still hold her in high standards always. She's, I think, still with Genpact or just recently moved out. She taught what is people leadership, right? So her way of leadership was that do the right thing, meet your commitments, meet your deadlines, don't do the same mistake again, and the bar is always higher.
Not discipline thing.
Yes. So I remember this joke in the team that if you haven't got fired from Radhika on something, you haven't been inducted in the team.
Wow.
Because she was this person who would really take your performance very
तो आपको मतलब in your early parts of your career were you scolded also or like?
Yeah, because
आज की डेट में बड़ा लोग एक woke से हो गए कि नहीं मैं नहीं सुनूंगा.
नहीं, it was actually the fun of it, right? Because she would really care about you. But the standards would remain high.
तो डर भी लगता था थोड़ा.
हाँ, काफी. But so for example, I remember I'm doing an all-nighter in Genpact because some codes haven't run, you've done some mistake, deadline is tomorrow, and this was very common in Genpact those days. That at least that feeling of deadline hai to hai, like that, right? She was like, and those days laptops were not common to be given to the employees, right? So she is there in office and I am there, and she's like, do you want my laptop? Like, take it. It's okay, you can do your work.
Nice.
She was like that. And I remember this other thing when I did a mistake and it went to the client, right, or the partner we had. And she fired me like anything, right? That how did you not check this report with this report? How did you not check your code? What is the QC mechanism? And all that happened. And then she made me write a document on, why this mistake happened, what we could have done to avoid this mistake, and what we will do in future so that we build controls around it. This we call in Swiggy the 5Y framework, and we use it as a can we do an RCA or can we publish a doc, right? She was doing it
10 years
those
ago.
days,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And then we get onto a call, and she doesn't let me talk. This is an escalation call, right? And she says, "It's my mistake. I didn't QC her work." And she was there I was
Leading by
amazed
example.
that she just went on the call and said, "It's my mistake. I didn't QC her work."
You still in touch with her?
Not so much because she has moved countries many times through Genpact.
This podcast can be one way to just reignite that conversation with her. Perfect. So now when you are in Dell, I'm assuming that it's a very coveted job for you at that time. You're happy. Dell is a very big brand. अब भी है, but उस time पे it was even a bigger deal. What made you, after so many years in Dell, come to a company like Fractal, which was relatively unknown at that time? Relatively, up to everyone knows about it. At that time, relatively unknown. Risk was higher. तो क्या आपको लगा कि I can get into a leadership role जो मुझे यहाँ पे opportunity क्या पता ना मिले? Was that the thought, or were you just bored?
A large part is bored. I would say I spent about 7 years in Dell. So a lot of my
Complacency नहीं आने लग गई थी थोड़ी?
No, because I was running POC to POC in Dell. So the first 3-4 years are more, let's say, the run of the mill, what everyone was
Generic
doing,
work.
generic work, or 3 years. Then I did one big project which was on online targeting, etc. Which again I started with 2 people, grew to 10 people, sort of thing. So it was like I was left alone ki just scale it.
Yeah.
And then the last 2-3 years I spent on this recommendation framework attached program, which was my first foray into end-to-end understanding of business and driving impact. This was unheard in Dell that time, right?
2014-15 की बात है.
हाँ. So again started as 2 half-time people to became like almost 30-35 people.
Wow.
That was my learning.
And you were the one who started?
Yes,
Wow.
because nobody was taking it seriously.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
कुछ कर रही है side में, it's okay.
ठीक है.
But then we kept on getting this funding.
Right.
So my partner in the US would be like, okay, I got 2 more recs. Let's improve. I got, and that.
ये फंडिंग मिलती कैसे? मतलब मुझे एक चीज समझ नहीं आती, जो ये बड़ी कंपनियां होती हैं GCCs, internally people say कि I am trying to get funding for this. So can you explain to me, let's say I am working in a GCC and I have obviously a boss or whatever in the US and I want to start a project or I have some thought. How does the whole overall process work from start to end of getting that money and then executing, showing results, getting more money? Can you explain to me?
So I think it's very similar to consulting firms.
Okay.
Basically, you need to know who has the P&L. Who is that person in a GCC also who can give you a rec?
थोड़ा एग्जांपल कोई अगर आप दे सको, कोई भी अपनी लाइफ से नहीं, जनरली एक रैंडम एग्जांपल.
See, at that level, it must be at VP level. Like it can't be below that.
So you are like a senior manager or something here?
But India में those recs don't come, right? You have to get them only from because these are global
मैं
centers.
वही कह रहा हूँ. इंडिया में who are you and who do you ask in the US? Explain that to me.
So India में
An average example.
Yeah, India में you can be a director,
You
senior
are a
manager,
director,
VP,
whatever,
whoever
depending
you
on
are,
the company.
right? You will ask your counterpart who you will make a pitch. Usually that's why there used to be this visits where you would make a pitch to many directors and VPs there that this is the work we are doing, this is what we
तो जिनको आप pitch करते हो, I'm assuming आपके senior रहेंगे या आपके level के लोग भी है, बस बाहर बैठे.
हाँ. They will have to then pitch to their seniors.
अच्छा.
Because
So you are like a shadow team here.
Yes, and the strings will only be the senior folks in US who can actually give you a rec, right? That okay, you can hire 2 more people. They have some budgets to give, and then if you keep delivering, those more and more budgets will come to you in the overall outline by the company. Because let's say if they stop travel, you can't travel. If they
In a consulting company, I understand that I can show a return on the people that you gave me. But in a company like Dell, which is a very enterprise focused company where results through analytics are tough to just show like that. How does it work?
So I can tell you, say for example, a targeting program, right, where you say, okay, I'm generating leads for you, which will work better in the market if your sales team goes out and run after them. We created synthetic controls of many types through the leads. So we gave them, let's say for example, 20 leads where we said I have used my ML algorithm or statistical algorithm, right? These are the 20 which are random.
Yep.
Okay. These are the 20 which I've given from the bottom of the stack according to my algorithm. You add your own 20, which because your sales team is saying we know better what works on the ground. You add those also. Let's take them in the market. You just have to convince ki haan yaar, you can take these 50-60 leads to the market, which is also difficult to convince, right?
Yeah.
And then if the conversion rates prove what you're saying, it works. Then they get that.
But result दिखाने पड़ेंगे.
बिल्कुल. Otherwise, you will not know where your work is going.
कुछ लोगों को बड़ा सरकारी तरीका लगता है काम करने का. मतलब मैं लोगों से बात करता हूँ, तो a lot of young people, they are trying to avoid companies like these because they feel ये बहुत bureaucratic है, innovation रुक जाती है. But मैंने इसकी एक दूसरी साइड भी देखी है कि जिस स्ट्रक्चर से काम होता है और जितना फॉरवर्ड लुकिंग काम होता है, अगले 3, 5, 6 साल का सोच रहे हैं लोग. And they are very structured with it, that thought process. तो सीखने को भी बहुत मिलता है ना.
Exactly. And also, see, it's always easy to walk to a person and convince. But as you grow in your career, what you need is influence, negotiation,
leverage,
understanding what the person really wants, how to deal with different personas.
हाँ, उनके क्या incentives हैं?
उनको क्या incentives
उनको क्या दिखाना अपने बॉस को?
Exactly. तो ये सब जब चाय पे नहीं हो सकता ना, या सुट्टे पे नहीं हो सकता.
Right.
स्किल वहाँ से आती है.
Right.
चाय सुट्टे पे तो बहुत easy है करना, like you know, if I can say so,
true,
right?
true.
But it is difficult. In fact, for me, more restrictive is the fact that forget about the sarkari or it could be slow or innovation कम है ज़्यादा है, but the fact that you're never able to understand the end consumer. I feel that very challenging. Like if I'm selling a laptop to somebody in the US, how do I get to that end guy to really understand what algorithm I need to build? Because a lot of it will be driven by understanding the customer psyche, right? वो हमारा exposure बहुत limited है.
But with a lot of Western content that we as Indians have started consuming post this internet penetration, Netflixes and Amazon, if you talk to a 25-year-old today, they will really resonate to what an American consumer thinks like. I have personally observed that because it's the type of content they're consuming. आपकी बात, I don't disagree to it, but there is another take to it also. Because पहले the content that we were consuming was through our TVs or at best through Facebook or YouTube. Now TVs was purely Indian, 2-4 Star World, 2-4 चैनल थे और वो भी shows अलग-अलग टाइमों पे आते. And Facebook was not a content factory, more a friendly kind of thing. Now all of that has changed. So in that aspect, there might be. What do you think about that?
It has changed, so of course you can work better, but unless and until you talk to the end consumer.
You are yourself not the consumer.
I am not the consumer. Right?
That is true.
Because see, what is my constant struggle now that I'm in an Indian startup, tech, Swiggy, right? We have more data than we need, if you ask me, right? Still we don't get the consumer right. And which consumer we get the least right is the driver. So we have 3 consumers. The consumer, the restaurant and the driver. And the least we get right is the driver because we are not the consumer. We are still understand the end consumer because we think, oh,
like
हमारा भी ऐसा है, ये है. Restaurant, okay, it's a more business driven and you can still sort of talk to them, etc. At least, Driver is always a struggle. Like it's so interesting that how they respond to anything we come to the market with.
I keep so whenever I order from Swiggy or anywhere, I love talking to the person who's delivering it. And one easy way to do that is you give a 20-30 rupee tip, so they will also open up in a very simple manner, right? And वो मैंने default option रखा हुआ है where you can keep that. So when I talk to them, I realize कि जिस तरीके से आप लोग उनको incentives देते हो, it is not so simple, it is so gamified. And it is a thought, and यहाँ पे मुझे लगता है analytics ये चीज़ें use होती है, if I'm not wrong, which a normal company will not have access to because they might operate out of gut कि हाँ मैं बढ़ा दूंगा, search कर दूंगा, but it's a combination of weather, it's a combination of locality, it's a combination of timing, festive, India-Pakistan match, like so many things, which is crazy.
Yes, it is crazy. It is because what we want is certain number of hours for sure in certain slots or certain occasions, certain timings, right? But still have a high bar on the delivery quality because we are on an on-demand platform of food. Like I say, food cannot be delivered cold. Food cannot be delivered with spillage. Food should be ideally delivered with a smile, right? In the right packaging, at the right time. So there are a lot of things which go. And that person is central or key to us for that. So we want to make sure that we do right by him. Or her. At all times. But again, there are pressures of the business. So you need to make that thin balance.
So जब आप डेल में थे, राइट, और डेल के अंदर आपने बोला कि मैं थोड़ा बोर एंड में फील करने लग गई थी, तो आपने you started applying for jobs. How did it work?
Yes, I did.
And that time LinkedIn तो आ गया था, if I'm not wrong, 25, 15, 16.
Yeah.
You were applying through LinkedIn, नौकरी कैसे कर रहे थे आप? You don't remember?
I don't remember.
So what do you think?
It must be Naukri or LinkedIn.
Whatever, right?
Yeah.
So explain to me the process. You are in middle part of your career. By that time, you have around 10 years of experience.
Yes.
So you are in a good place where your career can go in many directions.
Yes.
And in some form or the other, you are spoiled for choice also and you are confused for choice also. क्योंकि confusion भी बढ़ जाता है. तो उस टाइम पे आप क्या सोच रहे थे? क्या-क्या ऑप्शंस आप इवैल्यूएट कर रहे थे? थोड़ा बताइए उस बारे में.
So at that point in time, I was thinking of learning something new. As a matter of fact, I think that was my only drive. That I always felt that at this mark I should not stop learning, right? Something new you need to pick up, right? And also I've always placed a lot of importance on culture, the company culture, because Genpact and Dell had both amazing cultures. Like you said, a lot of leaders have come out of it and all of that. So a lot of good mentoring, culture, working environment, etc. I've now it's become default for me, right? I can't operate if it's not there. So it was a important thing. So I came across certain companies where I felt, the culture is not so good. However, everything else might fall in place, right? So, and for me, Fractal was a known entity in the sense, Fractal used to come on campus in Delhi School of Economics, and it had that aura.
That time also?
Yeah. It used to come there.
Oh, 2004-05.
Yeah. And Fractal had that perception or that equity brand था कि they do a lot of cutting edge work, cool stuff.
तब भी था?
हाँ, था. And they are this company. They had it, and there was another company called Inductus, which became EXL later, right? So Inductus used to also have this. So some of these things, right? So then it was known to me, and
कितने आपके interviews हुए Fractal में? 2, 3, 4?
Fractal में must be 4.
4 interviews.
4 interviews.
And usually in any of these consulting companies or services, जो भी अब तो ये कोई services कहता ही नहीं अपने आप को, but product companies or like who interviews? Like how does it work?
So I was interviewed by one level senior, I think 2 levels, one level senior for more tech, another level senior for attitude.
That is HR.
No, another tech person who will sort of also check your attitude. Then there is an HR round, and I think then there is the hiring manager round.
So did you like prepare for these interviews?
No, I didn't.
ऐसे ही चले गए आप?
हाँ.
Nice.
Because
sometimes that is better, right?
no, because see, I was doing a very tech role till the 10 years. At least I was quite into tech. So I didn't think I need to prepare for tech. And I was like, it worked, and it worked also.
Yeah, I'm sure.
So later on, when I got into Swiggy, that's not the case. I had to prepare. So there's a difference in that. So yeah, it just so.
So Fractal के अंदर थोड़ा आपका मैंने देखा कि profile got into client side sales also, P&L.
Not so much sale, but P&L. So the
sales और P&L में difference क्या है?
The difference is my P&L part of the goal is 20-25%.
Bottom line.
And rest is delivery. While the sales team is the opposite.
उनका revenue है.
हाँ.
तो आपका bottom line है उनका revenue. I'm just trying to understand the difference. Got it. So Fractal के अंदर आप I think 4 साल रहे? 3.5 years. And during that time we saw like a lot of these companies like Fractal had a bull run.
Yes.
Like massive bull run.
Yes.
And they were expanding like crazy. So tell us, when a company is expanding like 10-12 साल हो गए company को, and then out of all of a sudden 4-5 साल के phase में आप बहुत hyper expand करते हो. You got external capital also. तो internal conflicts, internal stakeholder management कैसे होती है? Because my understanding is whenever a company tries to hyperscale, there are certain old leaders in the company that need to be replaced or that need to be fitted in a different structure. So थोड़ा मुझे explain करो कि कैसे होता है कि when a company hyperscales suddenly in like 10 साल हो गए, कोई नई startup नहीं है, and an employee that is working in that company, how can they maximize their like position? How can they get the best out of it?
So I think some of these changes which happened are the like once I have entered, these changes came. For example, the delivery leaders didn't have P&L goals. So something they came up with, right? That so that you have the right coordination with the sales team.
Yeah.
Otherwise, sales is doing their own bit and
अलग ही दुनिया में.
delivery अपनी चल रही है.
हाँ.
तो वो नहीं चलेगा. So I think they brought that angle to it. They also came up with the idea of pre-sales team. पहले it was not that structured.
Pre-sales क्या होता है?
Pre-sales is the you'll have a lot of content, the cold calling.
Inside sales.
Yeah, inside sales, how you call it, right? So all the material, RFPs, they need to be coordinated because sometimes some RFPs really need like coordinated effort across.
And RFPs में भी क्या है, there are like cycles of it. एक cycle में 50 RFPs आ जाएंगी.
And then you need help from all the leaders, right? Because some of them are very vast.
Yeah.
Some could be focused narrowly. So they decided to have like a pre-sales team.
And POC वाली टीम यही होती है जो proof of concept करती है, वो like.
POC की टीम ये नहीं होती है. It all depends.
Before you win a deal, usually I have seen that.
So those you put together. So let's say you're gunning after a client. Let's say anybody. And then they say, okay, do a free POC for me, or just do some paid POCs, whatever, right?
$30,000 type के POC होते हैं.
Then you put together a team, which are like who are the people who are getting free, coming on the bench. It could be even shared, right? Oh, you have a full-time client.
तो आपने किया POC काफी.
I did.
क्या होता है POC में usually, मतलब how do you do a POC?
POCs you just have it's same as any project. तो उसके आउटकम्स इम्पैक्ट वाले ऐसे नहीं होते कि ऑन ग्राउंड
बस कॉन्ट दिखानी है, कोई कॉन्ट दिखानी.
आपको ये दिखाना है कि वी कैन डू सोल्यूशन
एट स्केल, अगर मुझे पैसे मिल जाए.
यस सो दैट यू नीड टू शो. तो यू नीड टू हैव द सेम काइंड ऑफ calls with the clients, show them outcomes every 15 days and say कि ये चल रहा है, feedback लो. So all that you need to do. Another thing which Fractal changed is that do only paid POCs. We did in my
that's what I've heard. They don't do unpaid POCs.
It was happening only in maybe the first 3-4 months.
But how do you remain competitive then when your competitors are doing it?
You just take the hit and move on. Like you just decided as a philosophy. Right?
And it helps also sometimes.
Yeah.
Brand strong बनता है ना.
Yes, and then you say, okay, what you can still do is various kind of pricing structures, right? That okay, if you pay for this POC,
this is the discounting.
This is the discount I will do. I'll do one small POC free,
but
you have to pay something. So you can do a lot of pay structures. Even for pricing, right? I mean, there are so many structures which are like, okay, one person can be doing free, or we'll give a leader who will personally supervise your work. We'll not charge for that. So there are different things which come into play. Because end of the day, I think the consumer experience also matters. See, in POCs, they're not really getting real work out of you. A lot of them, right? It's the consumer experience. They are always evaluating for long-term partnership. Because everyone has so many options.
Yep.
So that happens.
Now, आप Fractal में हो, they're doing so well. I'm assuming you have stocks also.
No, I didn't have stock. They are not very
open about it.
Open about it. Yes.
Now, Swiggy, right? At that time, 2019, Swiggy was a big deal.
Yeah, it was.
Now it's a very big deal, but that time also it was a big deal. तो आपको Swiggy was narrowed for you, or your thought was कि I want to get into the startup buzz?
Yeah, usually I don't plan any of this.
ऐसी मतलब.
I don't know. I actually believe that there is somebody who's looking after me.
Perfect.
So I always think like that.
Right.
Because when I actually tried my best to be in Fractal.
जी.
But after my large client, I only wanted to be on a large account, which a lot of them those days were in Mumbai.
Headquarters वही है ना.
And then I was like, and by the way, the leaders were fully supportive. They were also like, ये एक client है, वो एक client है.
They tried their best.
They tried, but then it was not working out. So then I was like, okay, let me look outside. And I always liked Swiggy. And that's how I got it. By the way, I replaced my own friend who was in Fractal.
Okay.
Because she was going on maternity.
Wow.
So, because she'll only come back after 6 months or so. So you need somebody.
Yeah.
So she only referred me, and then I got through.
And Swiggy में कितने rounds of interviews हुए?
5.
5?
हाँ.
Wow. Last was with the founder, I'm assuming.
Last one was with the founder. Yes.
Got it. So now in Swiggy, tell us how has your experience been? And सब कुछ अच्छी बातें करना. एक चीज बताना जो आपको अच्छी नहीं लगी. Which is like हर कंपनी में हजारों वो चीजें होती हैं. तो
it's a very different experience, if I can say so, right? First of all, I never worked in a company where it's a pod, right? Where an engineer, data scientist
all work together in small pods.
Small pods, right? Because unless until you collaborate fully, it's not, no product, no feature can be successful.
जी.
So how do we really work together? How do we empower everybody to
Yeah.
ask questions, make amends. RCS for everything gets published, right? So, oh, something didn't go well, but why? Because we are constantly learning of, why something didn't work. So that's something which I learned. Truly consumer first, right? And how do you give so much importance on it and etc. I think those are some of the learnings. How analytics can truly be the superpower. Like, उससे पहले ना I used to just feel
हवाबाजी है.
हाँ, मुझे ऐसे ही लगता था. I mean, I was like, I am very glad I am in this profession. It keeps my bills and
एप्लीकेशन नहीं होती ना मोस्ट ऑफ
I was like, हाँ ठीक है. मतलब ऐसी
थियोरेटिकल बातें.
सुपर पावर तो नहीं लग रही है, but अच्छी है. Like that. Swiggy, actually it's a superpower. Because any program you say, right? If you say today our loyalty program, marketing efforts, driver payouts, driver assignments, demand, forecast, everything and anything
is by analytics.
Is through analytics. Buy to is a big word, but through analytics, right? How do you even, something which I never knew and something which I've only learned in Swiggy is instrumentation. So what data should flow through your engineering system so that it can be analyzed? Because unless and until you have the right data flowing, you will not be able to analyze whether it's working or not working. A large part of our work is to learn instrumentation in terms of giving those directions to engineers to create those signals, right? Now these things you don't know in GCC. You are only using what comes to you. Right? यहाँ पे we actually say यार ये gap है. We are not getting this data. तब तक I cannot tell you. Right? So all that.
So जब आपका इंटरव्यू हो रहा था, फाइनल इंटरव्यू, that too with the unicorn founder, and what we have heard, what we have read is that when these unicorn founders do their interviews, they have their style of interviewing. It's not कि बताओ आप क्या कर रहे हो. Like there is always some vision thing going on here and there, some macro talks, philosophy people are talking about. तो कुछ यूनिक चीज बताओ आपके इंटरव्यू में when you had with the founder, and which founder did you?
I had with Rahul Gemini.
Rahul, okay.
So it's a funny interview in the sense he was in an escalation.
Escalation मतलब?
Consumer escalation कुछ
चल रहा होगा.
like that. So I was like, अरे यार, तो I could see it, right? Because he came to the call and he said, I was in a call, sorry, I'm a little late.
It was all like virtual.
हाँ, it was virtual. Sorry, I'm late. I said okay, and I was like, अरे यार ये तो एक तो वैसे ही bad mood में आया है, like that. But then of course he started. It was very as a matter of fact. Here are my business problems. Let me know how can solve them. What do you think? We, how do we do this? What do you think Swiggy का ये कैसे होता होगा? He wanted to really understand how
you think,
how I think, plus how much do I know about Swiggy also? Like, am I genuinely invested in joining?
And did you know a lot at that time?
I had studied a lot.
अच्छा, कैसे पढ़ा था आपने? YouTube वगैरह पे?
Everything, yeah, whatever I could get my hands on.
थोड़ा explain करो. Let's say मुझे एक startup में घुसना है, and Swiggy तो चलो was a very big scale startup at that time. I want to go on a mid-sized startup. So how should I do a research about that startup before I do the interviews with them? Because one thing I get personally very annoyed is if someone comes to me for an interview and doesn't know much about my company, I stop the interview. I say I don't want to interview you. Because then it doesn't make any sense, right? आप second, third round में आ रहे हो, and आपको पता ही नहीं है आप किस company के लिए, then it means कि you are not passionate about the job or the role. So how does a person who is trying to get inside a company, a startup, how should they research about it?
So I think understanding where they stand in terms of their P&L, whatever information is available about them online, you should know, because then you have to understand what is their scale, where are they trying to get to, etc. Right? That helps. What are the challenges they are facing which are out there in the public domain? You should understand, and then you should also try to connect with how can I help in solving. What is my point of view? It can be wrong, but have a point of view, right? Like we've had people who will talk about, but can we solve like this? And I'm like thinking, of course, if it was so simple, right? But then at least that person has thought about it, right? So those things, whatever blogs are published. So for me, I'm a data person. I try to learn about what algorithms Swiggy uses, or what are some of these things they focus on. How do they do their experimentation? Whatever blogs are published by them or by someone else. So you sort of read about everything which is possible. But if the question came like, how do you think you can solve this problem? Some answer should be there. Because if you have thought about 3-4 problems how you can solve,
Context setting हो जानी चाहिए before the interview.
आपको कुछ भी आएगा तो something you will talk. But one thing which I feel startups should refrain from asking, sometimes they ask the business only their case studies, which is like, which we don't do at Swiggy by the way, but like if you ask only like how should Swiggy solve their network problem, if that person knew how to solve it, they would already be here, right? So
Yeah.
I have seen this as I talk to some other people, etc., that it's only talking about their own work. If the person didn't have, for example, let's say there are supply chain analytics or optimization, logistics, warehouse, etc. If somebody has not worked on warehouse management or space optimization, etc., they can't give you a satisfactory answer. They can only tell you very generic stuff, right? So it's better to sort of
fair
you
enough.
know, test them overall.
बट अगर हम स्विगी की ओवरऑल जर्नी देखें, पोस्ट कोविड एक क्रेजी स्केल आ गया बिकॉज द वर्ल्ड चेंज्ड एंड ड्यूरिंग दैट टाइम आई थिंक एवरीवन लाइक वाज ऑर्डरिंग फ्रॉम स्विगी. सो आप थोड़ा कोविड का टाइम बताइए मेरे को. लेट्स गो बैक टू अप्रैल फर्स्ट वीक 2020, अप्रैल फर्स्ट वीक. हाउ वाज इट? क्या एकदम लॉकडाउन हुआ है? अभी पता नहीं लॉकडाउन कितना लंबा चलेगा. एकदम इन्फ्लक्स ऑफ ऑर्डर्स आ रहा है क्या?
No, influx of orders नहीं. The business was.
अच्छा, एक महीने डाउन था फिर बढ़ा था क्या? क्या थोड़ा एक्सप्लेन करिए.
It took some time to बढ़ा.
क्यों ऐसा क्यों डाउन क्यों था? पैसे नहीं थे लोगों के
No,
पास,
because
consumers.
touch, right? So you will still hand over food. People didn't want to get food.
हाँ, वो कुछ चल रही थी बीच में जिसकी सैनिटाइज कर रहे हैं खाना, वो कर रहे हैं.
No, the reason is any human touch people wanted to avoid.
That time,
Even the packaging. So people were like, okay, the driver.
घर पे ही बनाएंगे, घर पे ही खाएंगे.
हाँ, because the driver will leave it outside,
हाँ.
but then it still has the touch.
हाँ.
So they still wanted that touch should not be there. Then even pizzas and all, the advisory came na, you keep them for 8 hours. Yeah. So it took a long time.
कब तक? 1-1.5 महीना लगा? 2 महीने लगा?
More
कितना?
than that.
अच्छा, मुझे लगा था उस टाइम
And
पे.
we had to launch few products in no time. For
Like?
example, driver tipping, which you just mentioned, got launched in 3 weeks.
It did not exist before that.
It got launched only,
Oh, wow,
and it was launched in
crazy.
1 week, 2 weeks.
हाँ, because उस टाइम पे सेंटिमेंट भी ऐसा कि ये हीरोज,
So we
कोविड
launched
हीरोज.
it, we just took an opportunity to
Wow.
launch it. Then
Crazy.
We launched these things about distancing. So even the drivers need distance, right? They're so worried about their safety. Otherwise, how will they work? So how do you have distancing in all restaurants where drivers don't crowd?
Damn.
So your routing has to change.
Crazy.
You need to have selfies with masks.
हाँ हाँ, वो मैंने देखा था.
You need to have restaurant guys having you know, like enough safety rules applied. So a lot of things had to rejig at that time
Wow.
to first of all we having the confidence that we are ready to serve people, right? And the other thing is then giving people the confidence that we are doing everything possible for them. Now you can falter here and there, I'm not saying, but at
You
least
try.
we are doing our best, right? So that
तो कोविड 1 और कोविड 2 के अंदर कैसे आपने मतलब अपनी टीम की मेच्योरिटी लेवल बढ़ाई? लाइक फॉर एग्जांपल, जैसे कोविड 1 से बहुत लर्निंग्स आई होंगी फर्स्ट वेव से, एंड सेकंड वेव में तो आई एम वेरी सर्टन कि बिजनेस कर रहे थे आप लोग. सेकंड वेव में तो आई एम वेरी सर्टन अबाउट, मैं खुद भी ऑर्डर कर रहा था. सो आई नो दैट, राइट?
सेकंड वेव तक ना लोगों को ये हो गया था कि
ये सही है, ये इसमें टेंशन नहीं है.
हाँ, एटलीस्ट दोज
जबकि इट वाज अ डेडलियर वेव. डेडलियर वेव, राइट? सो एक्सप्लेन टू मी कि एज अ बिजनेस व्हाटएवर यू आर अलाउड टू एक्सप्लेन, कैसे कुछ मतलब डिफरेंसेस क्या है बिटवीन कोविड 1 एंड कोविड 2? हाउ डिड द बिजनेस एनालिटिक्स आर्म ऑफ द बिजनेस बिकम मोर मैच्योर?
So I think the collaboration became much better. I don't think there's a thing about being mature. So the first way we were still struggling with this offline like
Logistics.
distance model where we still need to work in pods, but we still need to, how do you sort of bring these features in no time, work together, etc. and deliver, right? How do you still have these learnings from each other? Because we were a very, very in-office company, right? So how do you make sure that you can still do all of this on calls and meetups, right? By second we were sorted. we know how the system works. Now, let's just play to win. That kind of thing, I would say. So teams were pretty settled by the second one. So,
Got it.
Yeah.
Now, if I look at the entire, if I look at your entire journey, you have worked in a GCC, you have worked in a pure play analytics services, whatever you call it. You have worked in a startup. That basically all possible things a person in analytics in India can do.
Yes.
And now a lot of people who are starting their careers and they're deciding between these three kinds of companies. So now, give me pros and cons of all three. Let's start with a captive. What are the pros of working in a captive and what are the cons of working in a captive?
See, in a captive, you only work on the things which are prescribed.
Okay.
Right? The work which comes to that center. It is probably a lot more dependent on the skill of your leader to get different kind of work which the people can
So
actually
leader really matters.
do. Really matters, because otherwise you can be just turning out reports.
Not that high value work.
Yeah. Or even if you're creating some high value work, it may not be getting consumed. Because as an analyst, you can't work on consumption. That's again the leader who has to work on it. You may be working on problems for people who are not in the decision making seat. Right? So those are some of the things you need to...
Those are the cons.
Cons, right? From a pros perspective, there would be structure. There will be processes. You will learn things the right way, I would say, right? Not like fundamentals. You'll also learn how to work in an onshore, offshore model. Become more polished in your communication. Your softer skills, negotiation, meeting deadlines.
Corporate politics also.
Corporate politics, I think, is everywhere.
But यहाँ पे थोड़ी nuanced होती है बड़ी, मतलब यहाँ पे जो मेरे को समझ आया personally, जो मैंने observe किया है, it's way more nuanced. It's like it's a game of chess. जल्दी decision नहीं लेते यहाँ पे, like यहाँ पे लोग जल्दी गुस्सा नहीं करेंगे, fire नहीं करेंगे. यहाँ पे बहुत सोच समझ की चीज चलती है. Like startups में तो बहुत जल्दी होता है ना, यहाँ पे वैसा नहीं होता, right?
Yes. So yeah, you will do it. You'll also get time to research and hone yourself.
And work-life balance is also better.
And work-life balance is of course better.
You have a overall take on work-life balance, right?
I feel, see, I actually think there is no work-life balance. Sometimes life takes precedence. Sometimes work. So it all just depends.
अभी क्या stage में हो आप?
Right now, struggling to know what should take precedence. My head says work. And
my heart says life.
Heart says life, because I have a 12-year-old.
Yeah.
And I'm always torn between that. So...
Got it.
Yeah.
Fair enough. So GCC is one. Now let's talk about a IT services, analytics kind of company. Pros.
Pros is you'll work on a lot more cutting edge things. You'll learn about a lot of cutting edge things, whether you work or not. Reason being, it's very difficult to take out money from someone else's pocket. Okay. So to do that, you always have to show your value. And that value comes with that work on a lot of new things.
Yeah.
So you're always learning about new technology, products available in the market, algorithms.
You're more relevant.
You will be more relevant in terms of your knowledge, at least. Whether you can really use it or not depends on whether you're able to win the deal or not, right? So that will happen.
बेचना आ जाता है. You learn how to sell.
Yes, you learn.
वहाँ पे सब लोग बेच ही रहे होते हैं.
Leaders will have to sell. I don't think analysts are selling, but leaders will have to sell. What you also learn is that you cannot have this thing about we won the project, let's say, and now the first delta will come after 3 months. I'll show you the first outcome after 3 months.
You have to show in 3 weeks.
You have to have those smaller milestones and show them, keep them engaged.
Patience नहीं होगी वरना.
Otherwise, they will not give you the money. They're like, we don't even know what you're doing. Right? So, you also learn that. How do you create value? From a 3-month project, but every 2 weeks you give something what they need and they can go in the market and work on it. So, which in GCC is a slight play. Right? So, you always think like that. Then, of course, the price you pay for missing deadlines is very high.
That's the con.
No, but that's a pro. So analysts need to learn, that they understand how much time they will need to do something. and have the discipline about it, right? Otherwise, you say 4 hours, it takes 8 hours.
I know what you mean.
So you need to gauge the complexity, the time needed, quality checks on the data you are delivering, all of this. I think this is fundamental of being an analyst.
Yep.
Because this nobody can teach you. The behavioral aspect of being a good analyst. You can write a complex code, but if it came to light after 12 hours,
how does it help then?
when the bus is passed,
What's the point?
So those are some of the things you will learn in a consulting firm for sure. From a and for a leader, it's also the P&L management, right? Like how do you make sure that
you understand money.
You understand money. You really understand money, right? So, and hence you also end up working on a lot of important problems because nobody's giving you money for
Choti moti
cheezein, or they will not give you the right price like that. So that is there. The cons could be, of course, the work-life balance. The cons could be that you don't pick up any domain, which I think is a bigger...
But most of these companies, they have now become focused on certain domains, right? That's the only way they're able to...
People keep moving, right? Accounts. So, see, you can't pick up domain in like 1-2 years, really, right? In a consulting firm, what I feel, because you still will not have access to everything which an insider in company guy
Obviously.
So it takes a little bit longer anyways.
You will be shown one side of one problem.
One side of one problem. So it's not like you can talk to anybody in the company. Na? Like today I'm in Swiggy, I can talk to anybody whether I work on it or not. Like that. So that domain building becomes a bigger challenge, I feel. And that SME, how do you become an SME? Is when you work for at least 4-5 years in something like deep domain is what I'm telling about.
And what about a startup?
So in startup, the pros is the impact.
Consumer facing, like very...
Consumer facing, you do something today, tomorrow you know whether it's working or not.
And it's a very cool thing to say, I am heading analytics at Swiggy.
No, cool is whatever.
I'm just trying to think like versus you working in Fractal, a Dell. Now that you talk about your work to your friends, to your family, it's way more exciting.
It is way more exciting in the sense
and more
that everybody
relatable.
knows. Right, so everybody has a point of view.
It's good.
That is, and the impact, right? That today we drop something, tomorrow we actually know whether it is working or not. In 3 days, it's clear.
आपके घर वाले ही बता देंगे आपको.
हाँ, तो वो काफी
घर वाले बताते हैं कि ये अच्छा नहीं लगा हमें, बहुत अच्छा है.
New age ones. My parents are still like घर में बना के खाएंगे, like that. But the cousins and everybody, there's always that friend who will say.
अच्छा लोग ज्ञान बांटते हैं कि उनकी स्ट्रेटजी चेंज कर देगी कंपनी.
It's a lot more.
कभी आपने कुछ इम्प्लीमेंट किया जो आपको किसी दोस्त रिलेटिव ने बोला हो कि ये हमें डिफरेंट करना चाहिए?
No, we always keep getting feedback, right? I mean, that is I don't know whether there's any specific something.
Because a lot of our listeners have friends or people working in such companies. So they think कि हम जो ज्ञान बांटते हैं क्या वो सुनते भी हैं या फिर?
There are a lot of people who will say, no, so for example, we know that, let's say, do people want wallets or not, right? I mean, does it work or not?
I don't want
it. So this is something which constantly people will say. Or let's say some restaurants are showing, not showing. Or some people are like, I want to understand how many orders I'm doing on Swiggy.
In a month.
Why I'm not giving this option? I'm not seeing this option anymore. So people actually notice.
इतना सोचते हैं?
Yeah. I was surprised.
एक स्विगी की प्रॉब्लम क्या होती है कि if you do invoicing on it, corporate invoicing, वो अलग से होके नहीं आती, बड़ा मुश्किल होता है. That's one problem statement. You should look at it.
I will touch on that.
Because if I order using my corporate card, let's say some work thing or whatever, उसकी invoicing निकाल के accounts वाले को देना is a challenge. So yeah, please थोड़ा देखिए. Okay, got it. So now आपके like overall in your career, right? I don't want to like brand it in that way कि because you are a female leader, but I think it's my job to still ask you that question because a lot of our listeners are young girls who are starting this career, their career in this space, and they feel underrepresented at the top level. And you are one of the many, but still relatively fewer people, fewer females in this industry who are at this level. So can you tell us that like, why is it so low right now? And what is your advice? What is your thought about all of this that is going on? What would you recommend to a young girl starting in this career?
So it is underrepresented, which is I think a fact, and it's underrepresented across the world. So that's also a fact. What I feel is, one is, for any analyst, male or female,
Yeah.
one is you have to get your basics right. Work on projects which get you the necessary skills. Whether it gets the right money that time or not becomes irrelevant after a few years, because you will make it for those jobs. That is number one. Number two, you have to be at it. I feel that at it, play the game as it's played, right? You can't be like, but I'll play it differently or my way. It may work, but mostly it doesn't work. So if you let your socio-cultural restrictions define your professional outlook towards your career, it's going to take a backseat, is what I feel. One thing I always tell people, because I think maternity is the big thing which people always say, right? That it.
आपने कैसे handle किया?
So the difference is that I never thought my job is an option. But just because I'm having a baby doesn't mean that my job became option. I need to do it. Now, how do I make it happen that I have a baby?
So usually when people think it's an option, they are thinking at a financial level. What I have realized.
Yes.
कि मेरे को, I'm just being very honest about it, what I've seen.
Yes.
I'm just giving a disclaimer. कल वो कुछ बोले ना कि basically my husband and I earn XYZ, in which most of the money that we are seeing is through him.
Sure.
So even if my earning goes zero, at a family level it does not matter to us. It's better to focus on family.
Right.
That is one, mostly that's the rationale that people, that's money only, right? That's what.
Money, and also, let's say, will there be good care for my child?
ये भी है काफी बड़ा.
Right? And that you don't have support or however, right? That is one thing. Mothers have a high on guilt.
Yeah. जी.
Right? So yeah, it probably all plays. Just something on money. Today your salary may be 50% of his salary, but if you're at
It compounds.
It compounds. Right?
Yeah.
You will grow.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So you're losing out on that. You will grow.
Yeah.
Right?
Agreed.
That is number one. Number two, I do believe that you are the best person who can take care of your child. There is no two ways about it. You will have to make peace with it, that you will not be that person.
You'll have to delegate.
You will have to delegate. That is something, you need to make that inner peace.
And who do you delegate it to usually?
Whoever you want to. I mean,
can be family, can be
family,
house help,
daycare,
whatever. Daycare कितना है इंडिया में भी है, prevalent है daycare इंडिया? कहाँ पे होता है daycare? मतलब थोड़ा explain करो.
Daycares are everywhere. I mean, even business parks have daycares now.
And how does the costing of this work?
I'm slightly away from this market, but
I'm just
it
curious.
easily must be 15-20K per month.
अच्छा इतना देते हैं लोग.
Yeah.
और कितनी देर के लिए रहता है बच्चा?
8 hours.
Oh.
Yes.
And क्या करता है daycare में? मैं बड़ा curious.
Actually, they have a very good schedule.
अच्छा.
It's much better than what you will do at home.
Okay.
Because they'll go,
हाँ.
right? Then they'll have some play.
Oh.
They'll play.
हाँ.
In a structured way, na, they'll do some rhymes or 1, 2, 3, 4, or just sit and do some hand exercise. You know that let's create
Mobility.
Sort of play.
Yeah.
They do all that. Then they break for lunch.
हाँ.
So then they learn how to eat as a community.
And this is common lunch they get.
Common lunch. They'll all sit together. There'll be teachers or whoever will take care of them. And they will learn to eat with everybody. Then they have their free play time where they'll have some park and all where they're just playing. Just simple slides and this and that. They're playing. Then they sleep. There's a sleep nap time. Once they wake up, then they have again snack time where they again they have
सही लाइफ है, क्या लाइफ है? कब तक किस एज तक होता है?
I think
3, 4.
No, the last they take is till about 10 years, I think.
10 years. तो स्कूल भी जा रहा है बच्चा parallelly.
हाँ. So school, the once they start doing to school, they get dropped at the daycare.
At around 2ish.
Whenever that school ends, they get dropped.
Oh.
Yes.
So you're saying there are a lot of options.
There are options, but yeah, but you have to send your child and you know, and he'll be there or she will be there, all that. So I think important is that you don't treat your career as an option. You say you have to do it. You may take a slightly, you can do part-time. You don't, if you don't want to be full-time.
एनालिटिक्स में पार्ट टाइम जॉब्स क्या होती हैं?
No, the same companies you can sort of negotiate.
करते हो?
हाँ, करते.
आप लोग स्विगी में करते हो ऐसा कुछ?
I'm sure we will do if the need arises.
Okay.
Fractal used to do it, of course. So that happens. Because one argument which I always give is that, see, when I was having my baby, maternity was 3 months.
बस? अब तो ज़्यादा हो गई ना काफ़ी?
6 months है, right? But tell me, is the baby any older at 6 months? No. 3 and 6 में कोई difference नहीं है.
हाँ.
ऐसा नहीं कि अब I have more peace in leaving behind my child with someone else.
Yeah.
At 1 also it's the same, at 2 also it's the same.
That's why Citibank, I just saw, has a new policy कि they have the 6-month maternity thing. उसके बाद 1 year work from home.
अच्छा.
That I think is not a bad idea.
No, work from home तो यार मतलब see, for example, Fractal always had work from home.
That time also.
Yeah, they like you work from anywhere you want.
Then though I think it's comparatively better.
Dell was ulta. So when I went back after maternity, they were like, तुम आ गई? They were like, but we were assuming that
अभी 2-4 महीने और
आराम से ही आओगी अब तो. I said no, but because my thought was he is not getting any older.
हाँ तो कुछ चेंज नहीं होने वाला.
Change नहीं होने वाला है, मतलब that need still remains.
हाँ मुझे थोड़ी डिटैचमेंट है वो मतलब करनी पड़ेगी.
For me.
हाँ.
It's not for the baby.
Really.
I have to learn to live without him.
Yeah.
And have this need to check on him every 1 hour. Right?
Yeah.
That is your training. Also, as much as the child's training. Right? So yeah, that I think people, if they can be at it.
It's not an option. That's what you're saying.
It's if you don't treat it as an option. And you can't be a full-time mother or can't be a full-time wife or a partner, whatever you say, and then be a full-time career person.
दोनों चीजें नहीं होंगी.
वो तो नहीं ही होगा. Delegate तो करना ही पड़ेगा.
Right.
That is just not going to happen. So we get into this game of saving money or you know like.
But अपने career में invest करो, you'll get much higher ROI.
Yes. So my famous story, which I say, is at one point in time I was having a lot of nanny issues. I mean, everyone.
क्या nanny issue का क्या मतलब होता है?
कोई नहीं.
मिल नहीं रही.
मिल नहीं रही है या जो आए, it's not good. My son is not warming up to that person and all.
How old was your son at that time?
18-19 months.
अच्छा. So these are different. Japa maids are different, and this is not a Japa maid.
No,
okay. My sister has a child now. That's why I know a little bit of this.
Yes.
Yeah.
So at that point in time, I was like, what do I do?
Right.
At that point in time, then I found a nanny, a full-time nanny. I had a nanny, I had a daycare and a car and a driver.
Wow.
Just for him.
Style.
बहुत ही स्टाइल. और उस स्टाइल में मेरी नैनी सुबह रेडी होती थी, एकदम स्टाइल में कार ड्राइवर आता था, वो उसको 2 घंटे के लिए डे केयर लेके जाती थी, फिर वो वापस आता था. और whatever.
अच्छे पैसे लग रहे थे.
Because the reason was, if nanny is not there, then at least my 6-7 hours were sorted.
समझ गया.
He will be in daycare till 6 o'clock. Then I'll see what to do after 6. But a large part of my work
is done by them.
Sorted, right? Otherwise, आज आपकी एक इम्पोर्टेंट मीटिंग है एंड नैनी इज लाइक आई एम सिक.
क्या करोगे फिर?
तो क्या करोगे यार? मैं तो एंड ऑफ द डे वर्क इज वर्क.
एंड वहां पे पीपल विल एक्ट आफ्टर अपॉन नॉट केयर.
यस. एंड दे शुड, व्हाई शुड दे केयर यार? आई मीन बियॉन्ड अ पॉइंट आई डोंट फील इट्स फेयर फॉर यू टू ऑलवेज से यू आर नॉट केयरिंग और एम्पैथेटिक इनफ. राइट?
It's a business after all.
It's a business after all, right? So hence this happened. So but this is an advice which someone gave me. Well, I've had these mentors, touchwood, very good mentors, who said that, you know, think long term. Today you may be spending 50% of your salaries on these things, but 5 years from now that will become only 10%.
Yeah.
So don't.
So that's a very. I love the fact you said it compounds. Your salary compounds. Most people look कि आज मैं 60,000, 70,000, 80,000, whatever जो भी कमा रहा हूँ, but वो भूल जाते हैं कि आप 10 लाख भी महीने कमा सकते हो.
Exactly.
अगर आप बड़ा गेम खेलो.
वैसे ही आता है. Right. So that is what somebody, and it was not my original thought, by the way, but you know, someone told me that. And I was like, makes sense.
Makes a lot of sense.
Yes. And that continued. That continued for at least couple of years.
Yeah.
It was really funny. There was tiny bacha sitting and, you know.
Stylish way to live.
Stylish. Totally stylish.
Nice. I think this was a very insightful conversation for me. I also talked about things which I didn't have insights about. A different kind of podcast we did. Thank you so much for that. My only last question is, I'm 23 years old. So as a 23-year-old, what advice would you want to give to me or to any 23-year-old thinking about how the future of corporate, how the future of technology is evolving in the next 10-15 years?
So, I don't know about you, but I'll tell about the tech.
Sure.
At least the people who want to make their career in tech.
Sure.
Right? Core skills never go out of market. Right? So if you know how to code in any language, then you can pick any other language which is coming. Right? Because you understand the structure of the language and coding and everything. Right? It's important that you know that. Talking will only get you so far. I always, unless until you know those core skills, at least the early part of the career, right? And then it's all about storytelling, etc. Right? So that is important. Being good at your work first is very important. Picking up the right behaviors like taking your mistakes very seriously, taking your deadlines very seriously,
respecting your seniors,
learning also. We should learn. One thing which now which I see is lacking is people are not learning by seeing. Like, so for example, when we used to get onto a call and project leader is talking,
observant होते थे
we would observe how come he is able to negotiate, कैसे बात कर रहा है, कैसे we would at least observe that. How is he presenting?
You were sort of in awe also of sometimes the leaders you were working with.
Now nobody is thinking like that.
वो अपने में ही खुश हैं.
So we have to explicitly say, write emails like this. But you are reading emails which the manager is sending, right?
Yeah.
Why is it not getting to you?
Yeah.
वो वैसे ही लिखते रहते हैं.
Right.
Right? So those are some of the things I would say. And then learning. Upskilling is important. So always think that what can you learn more, whether on the job or through any platform. Slightly more controversial thing to say, but don't run after fads. They come and they go.
जैसे कि?
Let's say even Gen AI today. Okay?
So you say Gen AI is a fad. Can you say it once? अच्छा हमारे को मिल जाएगा.
For example, Gen AI is a fad, right?
Right.
Prompt engineering
is a fad.
No, but either do some real work in that space.
Yeah.
That is
नाम के लिए मत लिखो resume पे.
Don't. If today a resume comes which says I have done deep learning in Gen AI and I have done networking and simulation, I'm like, okay, so that means he doesn't know anything. Let's move on. So if you do 3 things well, it's important. Even if Gen AI you do one project, even if it is on dummy data, but at least do it.
Yeah.
That would help.
Fair enough.
Because how many companies today have the potential to work on deep learning?
Hardly.
Right. So while it's important to
think about it, but
build that knowledge, but also keep learning what is more widespread, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
what is more operational?
Because even the guy who's doing deep learning has to write code.
Yeah.
Right. So
perfect.
So I feel that understanding your abilities, what you want to do, building the right skills, working towards them. And
one final question, right? Because your advice से इस time होता है. If you could do one thing differently, what would you do? Because ये advice भी हो जाती है in a indirect way.
Now or like when I started?
जो भी आपको पूरी life में मतलब in your professional life. सोचो आप.
Many things. No, there are many things I want to do differently.
दो एक दो चीजें बता दो आप.
I would probably, I personally feel that I would upskill myself a little. Like my learning stopped at a certain level, which I know internally.
Okay.
I would have not stopped at that.
Okay.
And I would have done it.
Well,
I think
most people would think like that.
I would do that.
Yeah.
For sure. And number 2, I feel I did not have that consumer focus initially, right? So understanding what you're doing and why you're doing.
The why part.
I wasn't very inquisitive. I would just do well what was given to me, but that can only take you so far.
Yeah.
So those are the things I would definitely do differently.
Perfect. I think this was a very fun conversation. Thank you so much, Ishu. I really appreciate your time.
Thank you so much, Raghav.
Thank you.
Thanks.